There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am with my book haul slash TBR slash pile of possibilities for a year-long reading challenge that has been brilliantly concocted by Mel of Mel's Bookland Adventures and Britta Bowler, called Reading German Books 2020. I have read a smattering of excellent novels from Germany over the past few years, and so this was like music to my ears. So then, of course, I went overboard shopping and acquiring. I had a few on hand. I'll start with those, and then I had some Christmas money, and oh dear. So I'm going to try to be brief, except when I can't. And I actually have one. I'd love any of your suggestions, but in particular, Britta and Mel, I have a question for you that I'll get to later. So without any further ado, of course, I'm going to put a link to their announcement videos and the Goodreads group. I've already started. I'm reading. I'll tell you about the one I'm reading now. It is called German Women Writers of the 20th Century. It's an anthology of short fiction in translation. And the editors are Elizabeth R. Herman and Edna Huttenmeyer-Spitz. I am loving it. I've read the first 5 stories, and I've loved 4 out of the 5 and liked the other one. So it's really good. Translation's excellent. It's on Scribd. You can get it there. It's expensive to buy. On a whim, I picked up this novella last year. One Clear Ice-Cold January Morning at the Beginning of the 21st Century by Roland Schimmelpfennig. Translated by Jamie Bullock. And it is about a wolf crossing the border between Poland and Germany. His trail leads all the way to Germany. Many individuals catch sight of him and find their own lives reflected in the wolf. This doesn't sound like a Sean book, but I will give it a try. A couple other ones Britta said I probably wouldn't like that I picked up at a used bookstore by Max Frisch Homo Favor. This is not a gay novel, unfortunately. Man the Maker, in English, I guess. Translated by Michael Bullock. Again, originally published in 1959, and it's a movie tie-in edition, so that is not appealing in and of itself. Max Frisch was born in Zurich, so maybe he's a German-language Swiss novelist. I don't know anything about him. This is about an emotionally detached engineer who gets attracted to a beguiling young woman. That sounds like a movie I don't want to see, but I might give it a try this year. I have another one by the same author, Man in the Holocene. Jeffrey Skelton translated this one, originally published 1979, and it seems kind of meta. It's got lots of stuff in it. It's his most acclaimed work of fiction, charting the crumbling landscape of an old man's consciousness. Sounds like my autobiography. I don't know if I want to read this either, but I have it. Okay, now the rest of this is stuff that I acquired in my breathless excitement about this year-long reading challenge. Another novel by Anna Seghers, Transit. I will definitely get to this year. I loved her novel, The Seventh Cross, so much. It was one of my top reads last year. I have a full review, which I will link below. And this one is about a man who escapes from a German concentration camp in 1937. So, similar plot, that works for me. Her other novel was just fabulous. This is also translated by Margot Bettauer Dembo, and so it'll be amazing on the level of prose as well. This was also one of my fondest reads, one of my top reads of last year, Irmgard Coin's The Artificial Silk Girl. This was translated by Kathy von Enkem, and so because I loved it, I picked up this one. Gilgi, One of Us, has a different translator, so I'm really nervous. Translated by Jeff Wilkes. And I don't need to say any more about that because I have a lot of other books that I probably want to say more about, but I can't wait to get to another coin. I also recently acquired a second-hand copy of The Loser by Thomas Bernhard, translated by Jack Dawson. And Adam loved it. I don't think it's necessarily a Sean book. It doesn't have any paragraph breaks. but I'm going to try it. I think I'd like to be pleasantly surprised by it. It's fiction, but it's about Glenn Gould and his relationship with two of his students who are so wowed by his genius that they want to just give up studying music. Yeah. Finally, this is another one I've had on my shelf for a few years, The Radetzky March by Joseph Roth, translated by Michael Hoffman. And this is a Sean book. This is the story of 3 generations of a family and a meditation on the Austro-Hungarian Empire and its eventual collapse. Originally published in 1951. I've heard really good things about it. I am definitely going to get to this one this year for this challenge. Okay, so those are the books that I had. Now let me show you the ones that I couldn't stop myself from acquiring once I found out about this year-long reading challenge. First up, we have a gay novel, Frido Lampe's At the Edge of the Night. Please help me with the pronunciation of his surname. I couldn't find any help online. I think maybe Lampe. Originally published in 1933 and suppressed by the Nazis, Frido Lampe was a disabled gay German writer who survived Nazi Germany only to be shot by the Red Army just before the end of World War II. This is his first book. It was banned by the Nazis and not published in Germany again until 1999, and this is the English translation by Simon Beattie. I'm assuming it has a gay theme. That's why it was censored by the Nazis, and I can't wait to get to it. I'm going to try, this is my baby step towards Goethe. This is The Mad Woman on a Pilgrimage, and this is in these attractive Hesperus Classic editions. This cost me about $2. It's 3 short novellas. They must be short because the total is 72 pages. I think it's 3 short stories, people. I think that people disagree on what counts as a novella, but 3 novellas in 72 pages, 1 novella is 72 pages. Anyway, there would be my first by Goethe. Okay, Mel and Britta and anybody else who has an opinion, I'm going to read both of these eventually, probably, but I'm only going to try one of them this year because they are fairly chunky novels about World War. Now that I look at them more closely, one of them is about the Weimar Republic, so I was confused about that. The other one is about World War II, but because of their chunkiness, I probably won't get to both this year. I will get to the other one later, but they are Berlin Alexanderplatz by Alfred Doblin, translated by Michael Hoffman, and it's pretty chunky, gorgeous cover from NYRB Books, and it's the one that's set in the doomed Weimar Republic. It's farcical, appalling, word-drunk, and pitch dark. Word-drunk, that has a nice ring to it. 450 pages. Originally published in 1929. Well, this one really appeals to me. And the other one is Heinz Rein's Berlin Finale. And it's set in World War II. April 1945, the last days of the Nazi regime. Very interesting too, but if I could only do one, which do you think would be more the Sean book? I'm leaning more to this one, not knowing very much about either. Please weigh in. Should I do a Twitter poll? Heinrich Bowles, The Train Was on Time. Short little one about a German soldier on a troop train to the Eastern Front, so obviously World War II. Translated by Lila Venowitz. I think this is the only 19th century novel, and I am going to read it. It's not too long, but I'm really excited about it, and that is Effie Bryce by Theodore Fontaine. 1895 novel by Germany's premier realist novelist, presumably of the 19th century. About 17-year-old Effie Bryce, steered by her parents into marriage with an ambitious bureaucrat. Sounds like a Sean book, and I think these Oxford paperbacks are really classy. Ingeborg Bachmann's novel, Malina, is an Austrian novel about a woman in post-war Vienna who walks a tightrope between the two men in her life. Heard good things about it? Translated by Philip Bohm. Originally published in 1971. Because I haven't been able to find as many novels by female writers from Germany or from the German-speaking world, I will definitely be getting to this one this year. And in terms of books I have physical copies of, the next 4 are, I found out about this series on Twitter, and the publisher of all of these is Seagull Books, and Seagull Books has a series of translated German literature called The German List. And several of these titles, brand new, were deeply discounted on Amazon Japan, and I snatched them up the day that I found out about them. They have many others that were not on sale, some of which I may get later. So let's go through these. These look so interesting, and certainly books and writers that I had never, ever heard of. First, we have a novel called Mr. Ted's Reflections by Hans Magnus Enzensberger, translated by Wieland Hoban, and it doesn't particularly sound like a Sean book, but it'll try it. It is just a series of reflections of this fictional character, who is a man. He's homeless, I'm not sure. He's a man who wanders into the park every day for years and years and engages passerbys with quick-witted repartee, and this is a record of those conversations. I'm not sure, but I will try it. Anybody heard of it? Next is The Cold Center by Inka Perry, translated by Catty Derbyshire.
Inka Pare.
Okay, I've corrected the pronunciation of her name. It's Inka Pare. That's difficult. That sounds like Japanese pronunciation. Inka Pare. German writer from Berlin. Born 1967, so she is not that old. Younger than me, a little bit. And this is about a man who receives a startling phone call from his ex-wife. She's in the hospital awaiting a cancer diagnosis. Short little one. I'm sure I will get to it again because I don't have so many women on this TBR Pile of Possibilities list that I will get to all the women. Women come first, then maybe a few men at the end. Next, What Was Before by Martin Mosbach, translated by Carrie Driscoll. Mosbach, born 1951, lives in Frankfurt. And the novel opens with two young lovers lying together. I don't know if they're in a park or in bed, where they are, but then she asks him, "What was your life like before you met me?" And that's how the novel begins. Originally published 2010. Don't you think these Seagull books, German list books, are attractive? The last physical book I have is by Sherko Fata, The Dark Ship. So this one definitely stands out as not being so much like the others. Translated from the German by Martin Chalmers. Sherko Fata was born in East Berlin and grew up there before moving to the West. But his ethnic background is, I'm just guessing, Iraq, but Middle Eastern. So he may be Kurdish from the Middle East, because his protagonist is a young Kurdish boy who grew up in Saddam Hussein's Iraq and eventually comes to Europe, presumably Germany. So this sounds fascinating. One more from the German list from that publisher, Seagull Books, that I will order. It's not going to be published until April in English translation, and that is a novel called The Unfinished by Reinhard Jürgel, translated from the German by Ian Galbraith. And I was really drawn to this because it is set in the Czech Republic in the summer of 1945, and it is about the expulsion of the Sudeten Germans who had lived there for centuries, I believe. And that is the story of Mel of Mel's Bookland Adventures family, one side of her family at least. She has talked about it very movingly in several videos. And so I was very curious about it. She will be reading it herself soon. So that one sounds really interesting. And then just a couple that I have on Scribd. My pile of possibilities is ready to topple over, but ebooks won't make anything topple, right? So I can fit in a couple more. One is a tome. On ebook, it's more than 1,000 pages, so I think the chances of me getting to it, but at the rate at which I've been bailing on tomes, it's possible. And this is a novel about the Armenian genocide, originally written in German. The 40 Days of Musa Da, or Musa Dag. I talked about it in my latest Scribd video. Franz Werfel, translated by Jeffrey Dunlap, and that translation was updated by James Riedel, and it sounds really interesting. Again, I don't know that it's realistic that I would get to it this year, but stranger things have happened. One of the stories that I read is Ricarda Hook. I couldn't find reliable help with the pronunciation. Please help me. Ricarda Hook. One of her short stories was really good, and so on Scribd they have a novella by her called The Last Summer. The translation put out by Pyrene Press, so I may give that a try. It's like 112 pages, translated by Jamie Bullock, And another chunky novel that is intriguing because it doesn't center on the German-speaking world so exclusively is The Storyteller by Pierre Jarawan, translated from the German by Sinead Crow and Rachel McNichol. A 2019 publication in English, 2016 in German. And Jarawan was born in 1985 to a Lebanese father and a German mother, moved to Germany with his family aged 3. And it's 550 pages on ebook. A man is haunted by his father's disappearance against the backdrop of Middle Eastern politics. He leaves the safety and comfort of his family in Germany, goes back to Beirut to find his missing father. So, several piles of possibilities. If you have any recommendations about where I should start first, or which ones I should not bother with, which ones would definitely not be Sean books, or any additions to the list, please tell me. I am so stoked to begin. In fact, I already have begun, but it's going to be a great year. Thanks again to Mel and Britta for bringing this challenge into my life and to all of our lives, and I hope that you will also join in and read more German books in 2020. Thanks for watching.